Welcome to the High Impact Man podcast. High impact men from across the nation sharing their stories of inspiration, encouragement, and hope.
Gosh, seek transformational relationships.
What you're hearing from the culture is not right.
Pick up the six, you know what I mean? But you never know who your six sometimes is.
Stop being less.
To help others become the virtuous leaders they are called to be and that our nation desperately needs.
Listening, folks.
Yeah.
Hey, we're off and running. This is Chubby D Fib coming at you on March 31st. This episode will
than last week.
this episode will air next week, which will be something like April 8th, I think. Anyway, the important thing about this episode is A, our guest, we know him well and we love him. He's a high impact man. But B, that should be the first episode kicking off our fourth year in existence here with a separate weekly episode of the High Impact Man podcast where we bring men on to tell their stories to inspire and encourage and motivate other guys to hopefully be more virtuous leaders. And you guys are tuning in and out there. I hope you really appreciate the men who come on here are willing to share their stories, because sometimes, it's hard. A lot of guys at the end of the interview tell us that they were really nervous, and you can't tell usually, but it's a big step for some guys to come on this thing and not bare their souls. Although some guys have done that, right? Dial up. Some guys have really shared some difficult things. But anyway, I hope you all appreciate that and get something out of every podcast. We pray. You don't hear us, but we pray with our guests before we start the podcast recording, and we always want the message to go out so that guys that need to hear it. And you take from it what you can to make yourself a little bit better, because that's our goal, right? Every day, making ourselves a little better. My name is Nevin Gorky. As I said, people know me as D-Fib in F3 land. Dial Up and I are coordinating our hats today. I'm joined by Troy Klinger. Dial Up, there he is, sporting the F3 hat. And our guest today is John Tamlin, Dr. John Tamlin. We know him as Stinger here in the F3 Susquehanna Valley region. He's a Danville guy right here in our packs. He's also our third FQ for our region, and he functions as a squad leader, which we'll talk about a little bit. So we don't have to play the game we usually play of guess how our guest got his name, because we gave it to him, so we know how he got his name. So we'll let him share that. So Stinger, first of all, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me. It's quite an honor for me. I've seen the caliber of guests that you have, and I think I expressed to you I'm feeling a little bit less than compared to the guys that you've had, but I am glad to be here, glad to share a little bit if it helps. My name was given to me, it's almost 2 years now. It was on Good Friday 2 years ago, and I was close. It was real close. I'm a beekeeper, and so that's how Stinger came out. And it was real close. I almost got Pooh Bear. And knowing my battles with my queen, Pooh Bear is probably a more fitting representation of what my nickname should be, but they were kind and they gave me something a little bit more rugged and masculine. But that was they were good. You guys have kind of fluctuated back and forth between not so nice names, some funny names, and then you were kind of going through a kind stretch there for a while.
Yeah. If it was up to me, it would have been Pooh Bear or something like that. But
I was not. I don't think I was there for your first post, and because I don't remember. Maybe I was. I can't remember for sure. But yeah, I definitely probably would have sided with Pooh Bear myself. But
Mater was the one that gave the Pooh Bear.
Mater?
Mater, I think, threw it out, but Mater was then said, "Let's go with Stinger." So
he saved you.
He did a little bit.
The way we roll at the F3 Susquehanna Valley region is the guy that's the Q gets the final say. I know a lot of regions it's the guy that EH'd you that gets the final say, but sometimes, like today, our beatdown this morning at Shake and Bake, we had an FNG, but the guy that EH'd him, Salty, wasn't there. So I think, and I told Dup, I said, Dup, I think there's a word for that, just a name for that in F3. The guy that EHs you doesn't show up, but I can't remember what it is. But anyway, so the Q got to name our FNG today, and again, he's a nice guy. Aquaman's going to give a nice name. Although our guy today, he's a mechanic, and is the rival company or whatever that they don't like is Snap-on. So of course we named him Snap-on. So
nice. Nice.
New guy to F3 Susquehanna Valley, Snap-on. Welcome, Snap-on, to F3.
We did tell him that if it offended him too much or bothered him too much that we could change it, and he's like, "Nope."
We did.
So
yeah,
he's good.
Yeah, and to his credit, he took it, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, Stinger, tell everybody how old you are.
I just turned 57 years old in February.
And so it's well into the respect category. He's behind me by a year and a half, but we're respect brothers. Now, how long have you been doing it? Did you say the date that you joined? I know it was Good Friday, but
yeah, it was Good Friday. So it was 2 years ago. It was April 5th. So we're coming up really quick on my 2-year anniversary. And,
all right, 2 years. Yep. 2 years. Didn't take long for you to show your worth, because Dial Up as our Nantan now chose you as our new third FQ. So we'll get into that and everything, but let's just harken back to yesteryear, and we'll let you tell us your story. So how did things start out for you? How was family life?
So I grew up in a small rural farming community in upstate New York. It's where I was born. Kind of fluctuated around. My dad was a bricklayer mason, and as is normal for that occupation, he floated around from job site to job site. And so we eventually landed in central New York in Cortland. Cortland is halfway in between Syracuse and Binghamton, for people who know that area a little bit. And summers are beautiful, winters are tough, and you either learn to love to shovel snow or you learn to hate it and then move south. And so I'm a snow lover, and it was a good, I would say it was a good upbringing. My parents were very ill-equipped to have a relationship. They both grew up in this Gouverneur, New York community that was near the Canadian border. And my dad was incredibly poor. Did not know who his father was. He was never told who his father was. His mother had him when she was 15. He floated around from family to family, who just kind of, even in third grade, he was working for his room and board. And as you can imagine, was a little clueless on how to be a good father, other than he had a really good heart, and he was an incredibly hard worker. His goal when he was young was he wanted to go into the Navy, but back in the 60s, if you had any kind of skin condition and he had psoriasis, that automatically kind of booted you out. So when that didn't work out, he ended up getting joined the union, became an apprentice mason, and then just kind of did that for the rest of his life. Always a hard worker, always a big sports fan. Always a guy that when we tried to play sports, he played me as long as he could when he knew he could beat me, and then he stopped playing me, so that he went down undefeated in any of our competitions. And but again, later in life, he and my mom divorced, and my mom had some issues, and I ended up moving in with my dad middle of my junior year in high school. And in hindsight, that was one of those God things, that it was a good thing. My stepmom and 2 stepsisters were really solid people. And for all their flaws, the one thing that my stepmom was amazing was it was all about hard work. And so that was something that I needed to learn. And that was something that she taught well. And so after that, I ended up going to college for just 2 years. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. The message had been, you need to make it to college. And so I did. And that's where I met my wife. And that's probably a little bit later in the history. But usually one of the things you guys ask is, what do you do in high school? And sports became kind of my passion. And in the 80s, it was one of those things that was a healthy identity. It kept you out of trouble. It gave you a focus on, working hard in certain things. And for me, it became kind of all-consuming. And so I played basketball, played a little bit of soccer in my junior and senior years just to keep busy. I came from the era that my parents allowed me to play 2 seasons, but then I had to work the third. And so I kind of gave up on baseball, but that was kind of my life throughout my high school years. So.
Yeah, so your dad, he played you in sports until he couldn't beat you, and then he quit, huh? Yeah. He never let you win?
He never let me win.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dial Up, did your dad let you win? when you were young?
No, I don't. Not that I can recall. No, it's like gotta earn it. Yeah, I was kind of the same way too. Like I didn't take it easy on the kids.
You didn't let Evan beat you at all when he was little. When he was like 3 years old, you weren't letting him win at checkers or anything.
Oh boy, I don't know. He was pretty ruthless at Monopoly from like a young age.
Yeah. My dad taught himself how to play chess. And so then in elementary school, he taught me how to. And he'd learn how to do that fool's checkmate. And I bet you, no lie, he probably beat me with the fool's checkmate 10 to 15 times straight. And he never told me how to defend it. He just kept crushing me. And it's a three-move win. Yeah. And but again, that was like a lot of things. It was one of those, if you want to win, if you want to beat me, you've got to earn it. And so we got pretty competitive. Yeah, and to his credit, he was pretty athletic. And so it was probably not until 9th, 10th grade where I could have beat him in basketball. And he was just like, nope, no more. Going down with a winning record. So
I remember when I beat my dad 1-on-1 in basketball. That was a big moment for me. So because he would tell us stories about how good he was in high school and how his team went to the Final Four in the States. This is back in, the 60s when they didn't have single A, double A, triple A. They had a little school of 20-some kids, and they made it to the Final Four. But so beating him was a big deal. Yeah. But I took it easy on my kids when they were really young. When they're like 3-4 years old.
Maybe when they were really little, I might have taken it easy on them. But like once,
when they started getting competitive enough and smart enough to know that I was letting them win. Once they knew I was letting them win, I couldn't let them win anymore. So,
and usually the kids would be like, "Don't let me win."
Right, and then they had to earn it, right? Yeah.
And Pong's one in sports that like once he commits, like he works really hard to get really good at it, like really quick. I remember like when we got a ping pong table, like he became obsessed with playing ping pong, like every night playing ping pong. And like
the problem with that is you got to have somebody to play against.
It took no time at all for him to be thumping all of us at ping pong. He would just sit down there though and hit, like work on spinning it different ways and just hit it flip the board up and just work on hitting it, getting different spins. Yeah. Working on different serves, but crazy for sure.
I'm not surprised. I coached him for a few years in soccer, and I am not surprised.
For me, it was my uncle that was my competition growing up. I had an uncle that was just a couple years older than I was, and we would just go at it in the driveway playing basketball, and it was just could never beat him as a kid until puberty hit, and I caught up a little bit to him and got to be as tall as he was, and things were a little more equal.
Yeah, height definitely helps in basketball.
Yeah,
no question. All right. Well, Stinger, you were playing basketball in high school, and then I think you sustained an injury, right?
Yeah. So I had switched right at the end of my junior year, and so actually it was the middle of my junior year. So our basketball season had just ended in the school that I was in. That was Homer. That was in the Cortland area, and we actually played the team that I was going to. So I asked my coach. I said, "Hey, can you introduce me to the coach?" Again, kind of a little bit deeper into that story, I never played competitive basketball. I played church league through 9th and 10th grade. And junior year, tried out for the team, made the team, had some success. But as you can imagine, if you haven't grown up with junior high and JV basketball, there's some rudimentary stuff you're lacking a little bit. Doesn't matter if you have some talent. There's just part of the team piece. You don't have as much to contribute. You've got a lot to learn, a little bit of a learning curve there. But anyway, he introduced me. We ended up going. I was allowed to practice with the team kind of towards the end of that season at my new school. Couldn't play just because of transfer rules. But we ended up our senior year transferred from a rural league to Syracuse Metro League, which we got spanked. So that summer, me and my buddy would go down and play in inner city Syracuse just to get a feel for the competition that we'd be playing. And that was fun. Learned a lot, but we got smoked that senior year. We were not ready for the level of competition that we had. What was cool is that we played against guys that actually made it into the pros. Matt Rowe didn't, but he played for Syracuse there for a while. I played against Dorsey Levens, although I was a senior and he was a freshman playing for Corcoran.
And did he go to the NFL? Was that a running back in the NFL?
Dorsey he played for Green Bay. He was a running back.
Green Bay, yeah. He was a good running back.
Jason Buchanan, he was, I think he played a little bit in the pros, but he was a starting point guard for St. John's under, was it Carnesecca? Louis Carnesecca was a coach back then. So we played against some really high caliber teams and we just got crushed. Towards the end of the season, we started having some games that were close, but our record was 3-21. I mean, this was not a season that, you hear some guys, yeah, we went to states and we just got hammered. But honestly, in about 5 years, their program had gotten built up to enough that they actually made it to a lot of the playoffs. I think they've gone to states since then, but that's been, 30 years. So it was a good move. After that season ended, I had a little bit of an injury earlier on in the season. But in March, this church league, they have a regional competition that's in Boston. And so I made the upstate regional team and went to Boston to play. Turns out that was a school I ended up going to. In my mind, the goal was see if I can get a scholarship. And they were a Division II school. I had no real hopes of probably being a starter there, but I was thinking, I'd be a valuable asset, for practices and just be great to be on the bench. I loved the lifestyle so much. That was just kind of one of my goals. And second game, I kind of alluded to this in one of our Slack posts. I was running backwards. No one was around me, just trying to defend the breakaway. And the guy pulled up at the foul line, and I just jumped off of my leg to try to put a hand up. Everything in line, right? There was no cutting, no weird motions. And ACL gone, just immediately obliterated. And that was kind of the end of my competitive basketball. To segue from the sports piece, in hindsight, that was one of the things that I often say is I kind of feel like that Bible verse where Jacob was wrestling the angel and the angel poked his hip socket out so that he would stop fighting. I felt like this was God's way of saying that I did not have the mental strength to balance competitive sports and to be a Christian man that he had called me to be. And so I was still young and dumb. I still continued to try to play because what 18-year-old, as soon as you start feeling good, doesn't hit the court again thinking he's going to be able to make it. But that was it. I never was able to play again. And I messed around, let's just say that, probably through my 40s. But then ended up paying the price and had to have knee replacement at 48 years old. So
now the ACL tears, when was that? It was like late 80s?
Yeah, that was actually March of 86.
Yeah, so we didn't have, I don't think we were as good at repairing those back then.
Oh my gosh, no. In fact,
it was people that listening to this, I think ACL tear, some guys come back even stronger like a year later, but things were different back then.
Yeah, I remember like one or two kids having their ACLs done back, in the high school days. Yeah, and it was not nearly as good of a prognosis back then.
No. In fact, the doctor I went to just said, "Oh, it's a sprain. You'll be fine."
Right.
And as soon as the puffiness went down and I could move around again, I went right back out, started playing again. And, the knee, of course, would just go out. It would swell up to a grapefruit. And 2 years later, when I finally went and had a guy take a look at it out in Boston, he was like, "Your ACL's gone. You've got scar tissue on both ends." So I went to the Syracuse surgeon for Syracuse football. Bruce Baker was his name. And back then they did, they either did cadaver or they took part of your gracilis tendon off of your hamstring. And so that's what he did. And surgery went pretty well. But again, I had issues with it. And by the time we made it down to PA, Finelli had taken a look, and Dr. Finelli, and the ACL was gone again, just reabsorbed by the body. So, I never had really great success with surgeries until I had knee replacement.
Yeah, and that's young for knee replacement.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. So because of that, Stinger doesn't run, but man, can he walk fast? We were,
And
That's all I got. That's all I got.
yeah, yeah.
He
Oh man,
brings his bike sometimes too and flies on that
we
thing.
did what in the heck was it? Was it Friday? Friday, our guy that was supposed to queue didn't show up Friday, and Stinger said he'll take the queue, and so he let us, and we started a mosey, and I decided, well, I'll just hang out with Stinger and walk with him, and I had to jog a little to keep up with his walking pace. The guy could walk. He's got quite a stride.
It's not the same in cardio though, because I know when I was trying to shuffle across the field, it's a good thing I was paired up with our Nantan here. I was sucking some serious wind. He carried us.
You were moving though. You did good. I was impressed.
Yeah,
It was
you're
ugly.
going.
It was ugly.
Well, that's interesting that you made the comment that you thought it was a sort of a blessing in disguise.
Definitely.
So that you said you'd have a hard time balancing competitive athletics and kind of walking the walk of faith that you wanted to. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Because a lot of guys do that. I mean, they're competitive and they're Christians.
I was very weak in terms of, it's too much of a people pleaser when I was younger. The idea that sports could define who I was. And I was getting to the point that as I was having success, even my senior year, I started looking for opportunities for partying, for relationships that really were not God honoring. And fortunately, God blocked a lot of damage that can come from that pathway. But I really feel like it was one of those things that I wouldn't be with my wife. There was no way that she would be married to a guy that wasn't a believer. And it was just one of those things. So many blessings have occurred because I was not able to pursue sports at the competitive nature that I really want to. If I'm honest, when I started F3 almost 2 years ago, as soon as I got past that initial few months of pain and agony of realizing how fat and out of shape you were, that I started thinking, boy, my knee feels really good. I was able to jog, and there was that one, it was a Monday. It was a shake and bake. It was 6 o'clock. It was a nice warm day. Everybody was running. And it was one of those, because I wanted to fit in with the crew, I decided, I'm going to start running. I made it about 1.5 miles, and it was feeling good. My cardio was decent. And then all of a sudden, my healthy knee I ended up tearing, they think that I tore some cartilage, and I was out for almost 2 months. And it was one of those moments where I felt like God was saying, John, I've allowed you back into some type of athleticism with an amazing group of men. Do not blow this. Do not try to be something that you're not. And from that point on, it was just kind of one of those, okay, I can be an F3. I'm never going to be one of the top star performers, but I can work hard. And if that encourages other guys who are maybe in a similar boat who feel like, I don't know if I can keep up. Again, we say this is, pick up the 6. We've got to be the best that we can be. I don't have to be dial up as much as I'd love to be. As much as I'd love to be able to run and do the things that he does at his age, that is not what God has blessed me with. So
his hat's only so big. Don't keep pumping him up like that.
Yeah, I have my shortcomings.
He's getting older too. I mean, this is for a season, so do it as long as you can, But he also handles it well. So you can't compare apples to apples here. So.
Yeah, well, that's a great message, man. Because I think that you are an inspiration because for a lot of reasons, which we'll get into. But that was really, really well said. Dial up. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say you inspire me with your leadership at the Tuesday Thursday beatdowns. That 5 a.m. I know those are 2 days that I kind of reserve for running with a couple run buddies at 5:30, and to me it's a blessing to roll in there to meet those guys for the run and see you there every Tuesday and Thursday 5 a.m. leading the group. And it's a small group. Sometimes it gets discouraging when it's only a couple guys there, but you continue to show up religiously, and I think in time the reward will come and more guys will come to that.
I hope so, but it's also been modeled. That's not just something I've started doing. Porky's did that for years. He ran the Tuesday Thursday slot. He and TC. Skittles was there quite a bit, and so it's been modeled that it doesn't matter if it's a large group or not, you still show. And I also feel like that's been reiterated to me because we get several downrange guys that happen to show up on Tuesday, Thursdays.
Right.
And it's always one of those, man, I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I had something planned for these guys that are, here. And they're often here not for good reasons, right? They're at Geisinger because of something's going on with a loved one. So I feel like that's ministry if we can do something for these guys that are here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well said.
I get the sense too that being small numbers on those 2 days, you guys are close. You get to have some really good conversations that sometimes are harder to have when there's 10 or 12 guys there.
Yep. Absolutely.
So I think,
yeah, for sure.
I think it serves its purpose in a lot of ways. And thank you for being the leader there.
So for people that don't know, we have a beatdown every morning, Monday through Saturday. Saturdays we have 2 consecutive. One's a run, and the next one's a boot camp. Tuesdays and Thursdays are at 0500. The other ones are either the earliest. The other ones will start as 5:45. Monday start at 6. That kind of thing. So 5 a.m. Is pretty darn early for a lot of guys. It started actually, believe it or not, with Skittles. He's the guy that started it because he couldn't make the other ones during the weekend. He wanted to do something earlier. And other guys have shown up before you really took over. There were a couple of times where I showed up on a Tuesday or Thursday, and I had the queue, and I was the only one there. I don't show up for Tuesdays and Thursdays that often, but Stinger is oftentimes the queue. He's taken command and leadership of that and owned it. And there are times when he's the only guy there, and he'll post the backblast. So really, again, a great example and inspiration to other guys. It doesn't go unnoticed, brother.
I appreciate that. Ever the optimist, though. We're getting into nice, warmer temperatures, and it'll get a little bit lighter by 4:30, 5 o'clock. So there's hope. I think our numbers are going to maybe not explode over the summer, but maybe get some increase, especially as it heats up.
They definitely have started to swing upwards again with the little nicer weather.
Yep.
Yeah. We stay pretty strong through the early winter, but I think slowly the cold temperatures just slowly beat everybody down into submission until, around January, February. And then we start getting these glimpses of warmth in March that start getting the guys back out.
Honestly, a shout out to Beachy. If he hadn't done the Yeti challenge, that was a really decent motivator for me to keep going strong through end of January, February, beginning of March.
Definitely.
That was helpful.
Yeah, why don't you describe to everybody listening what the Yeti challenge was for us?
Okay, so the Yeti challenge was, and correct me if I get this wrong, was it 10 weeks?
Yes.
Yep.
And we had challenges in terms of that we were just supposed to be outside working out. It did not have to be necessarily one of the F3 workouts, but it was whenever you can, had to be. The only requirement was that it had to be 30 minutes. And I think Beachy got a little soft there on the end. He allowed inside workouts, but it's all good, right? We're just trying to keep moving here. So, and then he actually went out and bought patches for all the guys that finished the challenge. So
yeah, we had to average 5 a week. I think that did inspire guys to do a little bit more during the winter. That was the idea anyway. So I think it worked. It was a good idea. Yeah, outstanding. All right, so you got involved with F3. You've been doing it for 2 years, and Dial Up made you the third FQ almost a year ago now, right? Yes. It was like last May or June, something like that.
Coming up pretty quick.
So what has your experience been like being the third FQ?
Let me preface this by saying that over the past probably 5 to 10 years, I've felt compelled, maybe called a little bit to get more involved in my community because I've always taught outside. I've never taught in Danville or any community that I've lived. So that being said, I kind of had resisted. I'd gotten EH'd by Tuner probably 2 years prior than when Beachy got me to come. But it was one of those things that I finally went, and everything just kind of came together. It was really kind of strange that suddenly I was surrounded by a group of guys who were motivated not only to improve their own wellness, it was not just internally focused, it was very outwardly focused. And you guys do a really great job, I think, keeping an eye on the community, seeing where there's a need, stepping in, filling that need, being the hands and feet when we need to be. So that was kind of modeled early. And the fact that there's so many guys that want to do that, that they're not in F3 for themselves, they're in it for the second F and the third F. And so for me, that was just, I really felt like I had God tapping me on the shoulders saying, hey, are you picking up what I'm throwing down here in front of you? It was just a great way to get involved with community and not just the same thing over and over again. Wherever there seemed to be a need, guys would step up. And so that's the great thing about it, is that, you know, I'll get an idea, TC will get an idea, Tuner will. There's a couple other guys that are in that shield block with me. And we just kind of throw it out to the packs and they jump on it. The generosity is overwhelming from my perspective. And so it's just been a great opportunity to be the hands and feet and get involved with other men in our community. And so, you know, this has just been 1 year. I'm looking forward to seeing how this continues. So I've enjoyed the opportunity. I appreciate that you trusted me enough to give me that responsibility, but honestly, it has very little to do with me as opposed to the collective, all of our group here in the Susquehanna Valley. This is one big loving group of men who really care about the community that they live in. And it's been awesome to be part of.
Wow. Yeah. Thanks, man. I agree. It's been a real blessing for me, for sure. And encouraging to see all the guys in the pack step up and do these things. I don't know how other areas, other regions handle their third F, but for us, the third F involves community work like Stinger just described, but also Q Source. So every week, Sunday, he puts out the Q Source point chapter or whatever for the week, and it takes I think a lot of regions do this. It takes almost a whole year to get through each chapter in Q Source, and we try to talk about it throughout the week during our beatdowns. We're not always successful at that, but we try. Probably could be more discussion on Slack when you put it out there. Guys could start chiming in a little bit more on Slack about that stuff. But anyway, that's another part of it. And then Tuner still puts out on the Bible app, we have a daily devotional for anybody that wants to get involved with that. So am I missing anything? There's a lot involved with the third F.
No, that's true. I'm glad you brought up the thing about Tuner. Beach Ball had been doing that for almost a year prior to, and then he said he was going to step away from that if there was someone else that wanted to step into it. And Tuner jumped right on it, and he's been incredibly consistent with keeping that thing going. And very much appreciate that. I should say I might be the third FQ, but there are lots of men who get involved, share ideas, and kind of get the ball rolling in a lot of different aspects. Tuner's one of them. TC is amazing. That guy is a plethora of really interesting and great ideas at times. And then I guess I would just encourage the rest of the packs. If there's an idea that you think you'd want to float out there, throw it at us. If that's something that as a group we think we should move forward with, this doesn't have to be our ideas. It can be, we're here to represent the group. So whatever you guys want to do, we're usually open to.
Free to lead, baby.
Absolutely.
Everybody's free to lead.
Speaking of great ideas, DFib, I'm going to take us away from Stinger just for a minute because I think it'd be great for our listeners to hear that they need to check out the First FQ channel, or the First F channel on Slack, and look at the chatter about a nationwide relay for F3 guys. So starting in Seattle, ending most likely, it sounded like Jacksonville, Florida, I think was the discussion. Having a relay, handing off a physical baton, I think is what most people are in favor of. And just covering as much of the country and hitting as many regions across the country as we can, of guys literally running across the country from AO to AO, from region to region, and passing a baton off and taking it from coast to coast. To me, that sounds awesome. So if you're a listener and you haven't heard about it, DFib pinged me last night and said, yo, check this out. And I jumped on it. So get out, take a look at the First F channel, find that conversation, and get your region involved.
They'd have to take a big upswing to the north to get to us.
Yeah.
Unless...
I said we can cover PA and hand off to New Jersey. We got
right.
that part.
And then they have to go down the coast. So that'd be good.
We got a gap from Pittsburgh to Central PA, though. That's going to need to get
right. Yeah.
That's a long way.
Well, Uno's down there somewhere near
Pittsburgh
in between.
And Hollidaysburg launch. So we're so we got a little more coverage than we used to.
Yeah. It sounds like a cool idea. They should call it like the Forrest Gump something or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are they? I forget. I didn't even read the whole thing. I just saw it and thought it was cool, and I sent it to you. But are we? Doing something like that would be cool to raise awareness for something worthwhile.
Yeah.
People do that. I don't know how you do that, but whatever. Wounded Warriors. I just picked something off the top of my head or whatever. That'd be kind of cool. Get 3 guys, supporting that, and then get some media coverage, like national media coverage.
Yeah,
That would be cool.
That would be neat.
All right, focus back to Stinger. Sorry, I just had to throw that out there for our listeners.
So, all right, we'll focus back to Stinger with this. So, Stinger, it was about 3 weeks ago or something like that. It was a Tuesday. I posted. You and I were the only ones there, and Tuesdays is a run/bike ruck kind of thing, and I ran a little bit and tuner biked, and at the end I can't remember, Stinger, exactly how it went. I think you were lamenting your weight or something like that, and believe me, Stinger's fit. But I said, dude, there's this Fat Boys Club we got going on. It's a text string that we started years ago. I don't remember whose idea it was, but we weigh in on Mondays and Thursdays. We post our weights to try to have some accountability for our for our queen, how much we weigh and what we're eating and that kind of stuff. And so Stinger joined us. So we're at I don't even know how many guys. Dial, what we got, about 6 guys that contribute.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
7 guys in the Fat Club.
We offer accountability, but no success for the most part.
Correct. I think it's actually, I was thinking about this. I think that if it wasn't for the Fat Club, I think I would weigh more. But everybody, with the exception of you lately, you're dropping weight a lot lately because you're training for a marathon. But everyone else seems to have plateaued somewhere where they haven't exactly reached their goals.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes we were going to measure our FUPAs once a week, which I'm like the only guy doing it, and Stinger started doing it, but most guys aren't.
You're the only one that posts underwear pictures too.
Well, well, yeah, I think it was like a year ago. I said we should put a picture up once a week too, because that but nobody did that but me, and I still do it once in a while. But anyway, and I have shorts on, by the way. I do have shorts on, I think. Anyway, so what was it last week? I said, I had another, brilliant idea. Like, hey, we're not really moving the needle much, many of us, and so we should probably pick a goal weight and start. Like, let's all report what our caloric intake needs to be to lose weight or whatever, and get that calorie deficit and pay attention. Dial Up said, get this Fitness Pal app. It's really great and everything. So I got that last week, and for a week I've been doing it diligently, counting my calories, and I've been right around 214 for the longest time, hovering between 214, 216, but mostly toward 214. Saturday I was 214. It wasn't a weigh-in day, but I weighed myself. Today's a weigh-in day, 218. How does that happen? How does that happen? I'm being
constipated. That's what you are.
I've been more diligent with my calories and counting calories than I ever was. I thought I was looking forward to like 213, 212, 218. What the heck?
He's bloated.
I'm bloated.
PMS.
You're holding fluids. You can see it in your face right now.
Yeah. So
pulmonary edema. Did you eat something really salty?
Not that I know of. I don't know. I don't know. What does it matter? I'm overnight. I peed it out. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I did not jump right away on that. I think subconsciously, I don't know. And then it kind of went down the pathway of talking about the app. And so I think the app would probably be good. Beachy is always saying things about if you're not writing data down, you're not going to be as effective in reaching your goals. Right. So I know I need to do this, and so maybe I should go right out and on the record here and say I'm shooting for 200. That was the number that was floating in my head. So that would be 14 pounds for today. But realistically, while I want to lose the fat, I wouldn't mind putting on some muscles. So 14 pounds for me would be that would be a great goal. So I'm kind of shooting for end of August if I'm going to give myself a timeline.
Oh, that's ambitious.
We'll see. We'll see. But honestly, it's supported the FUPA. I really need to keep the FUPA measurements because I'd like to get down under 40 on those.
Yeah. He does not. Stinger does not look like his waist is more than 40, but he posted his first FUPA. I'm like, are you measuring in the right spot? Because you do not look like you got a waist size that big. But anyway, just a little dirty laundry from the F3 Susquehanna Valley boys for all of y'all listening out there. I'm sure y'all can relate. I do not understand this whole Fitness Pal app thing though. It didn't work. Okay. I'm going to stick with it.
Right.
How it's not hard. You put in the food.
Are you like underestimating your portion sizes?
I'm trying really hard to be good about it. I'm not measuring everything.
Your baseline calories to lose a pound a week does seem high. I told you that one.
Well, okay. So, I don't know why that happened, but I looked it up on my own, and it's really like 2,200 calories a day.
Okay,
that's what I've been hitting. That I've been even though the Fitness Pal app gave me 3,200. I don't know how that happened. That's probably user error, but I've been even though it was that I've been leaving 800,000 calories on the table even when it was 32. So I don't know. I'm going to stick with it for now, but that does not make sense. It does not compute to me. But that's why I introduced myself as Chubby DFib at the beginning of this podcast.
I guess
all right, enough
bringing it back. I think the Fat Boys Club is a good thing because it's an accountability piece. So,
yep. I think y'all should post your underwear pictures, but then again, maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe after August.
All right. For those of you that don't know, I don't think we've said it, but Stinger's occupation is he's a chemistry professor at a local university. So, you mentioned what Beach Ball said about measuring things. Isn't that some kind of scientific principle that the things that you measure improve?
Well, for me, I know just in life in general, if I can quantify something, it's more meaningful. So anytime you can look at data, I know we can skew data, but data usually gives a better representation of what's going on. And so, in chemistry, one of the reasons why a lot of people end up hating chemistry is that we apply so much math to it. And so for me, who likes numbers, originally when I went to college, I thought I was going to be an accountant, and that didn't pan out. But I do very much like math, and I'm hoping down the road all this math that I do is going to help with the dementia piece that might come in my 70s. So we'll see. You guys can let me know in 20 years when I'm there, but I'm thinking all this math has got to help. But we do quantify quite a bit of stuff, and again, that's part of the job that I really like.
Yeah, don't count on me. You'll be asking demented DFib if you're demented or not. That's a bad idea.
Same.
All right. So now let's talk about squads. Dial Up, when he became Nantan, he had this idea of breaking our region up into squads so that in each squad would have a squad leader, and the squad leader would be responsible for basically being like a mini Nantan, just taking care of the squad, making sure if guys haven't been showing up, checking up on them, that kind of stuff. There was no real rules or anything like that, but we just wanted to make sure that guys were not getting missed if they were, all of a sudden we don't see them for a couple of weeks, or, what they need and how the guys are doing. So be candid, Stinger. What do you think of the squads?
I think it's early to tell yet. I think we're still trying to get a feel for how we should assemble a squad. We went with if you're going to be a squad leader and these are the days that you typically queue, and here's the guys that typically show up on those days. At least that was my understanding of how the squads were assembled. We had a meeting here, maybe a month ago, 2 months ago, that we were messing around with free agency a little bit. We were trading some guys, kind of reassembling. I don't know that that's officially happened yet. But I think the underlying point here is that we don't want to have a guy fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
one of the Slack conversations was kind of numbering 1 to 5 the types of F3 men that are out there. And we have an awful lot of one and dones, or maybe 5 and dones. They come for a while and then they kind of fall off the reservation a little bit. And I think that's something that it's not that they don't need F3 suddenly, but for whatever reason, F3 isn't meeting whatever need they feel like they have. So not sure. I think that's the idea of squads. I don't think we've nailed down anything definitive in terms of what works. But it never can go bad if you've just got other men reaching out to other men saying, hey, we missed you. How you doing? And trying to lift up each other's needs. That's a good place to start.
Yeah. The problem is that the squad leaders all have a guy that's in charge of them, and that guy has been doing a terrible job. So anyway, he can improve for sure. Or maybe be replaced. I think, Dial, maybe you should replace that guy.
I should replace that guy? Okay.
Yeah, I think you should replace that guy.
All right.
Somebody more suited to the task.
You know what we need? We need a wing night to discuss this further.
The last number of times I tried a wing night, nobody could do it. So
that's because you usually hey, it's 3:00 in the afternoon wing night. Most of the guys have kids, and
you said I have to plan ahead. All right. Yeah.
It's kind of like the podcast meetings that you try and plan and schedule.
Oh, don't get me started on that. All right. Well, anyway, yeah, I'm still waiting for the first dial-up led SLT meeting, though. I don't know.
There was one.
There was one. Hey, we're coming up on our yearly anniversary at the end of May.
Yeah, we picked a bad time to launch. Like we it was great that first year because we were coming out of COVID, but it's always right when I go on vacation every year. So I'm always not around for the anniversary for us. But yeah, we're a month and 3 weeks or so out. So
yep,
we'll get something going.
All right. Well, Stinger, I'm gonna ask you a couple questions.
A day or two late after I get back from my vacation.
Yeah, whatever you got to do, brother. So Stinger, F3. I mean, you kind of talked about it a lot anyway, but it's supposed to be a leadership development program, really. I mean, the mission is to invigorate male community leadership. How has F3 impacted your ability to lead?
It's given an outline. Before, where it just seemed like this ambiguous idea of, let's do something for the community. I've seen tangible ways that it's been modeled for us. I think I should also put out a plug for the book Freed to Lead and then Q-Source. Those I've read Freed to Lead twice. Part of that was because it's not that it's written at a hard level, but the vocabulary is all new. For guys that know F3, there's a little bit of a learning curve there. But Q-Source is something for me, it's not something to read through as much as it is to be digested. And so I had read a little bit of Q-Source last year before I became third FQ, but this year I've been a little bit more intentional about reading through, thinking about the questions, trying to participate in some of the conversations that happen at the beatdowns. But you really can't get around it. I think Q-Source is at least it clicks with me, is one of the better leadership manuals out there. You had actually said something a year ago that inspired me, Nevin, to read it, but you had said it was one of the most impactful books that you've read. I'm paraphrasing, but that was kind of how I took it. And I would say it is. There's not a probably week that goes by that I don't read something that Dredd wrote in that book that doesn't really resonate. It's been a really good book. So I would encourage guys, even if you feel like you already are a good leader, give the book a try. Read through some of the weekly things, look at some of the Socratic and other spur you on type questions that are out there, and have a conversation with somebody that you're close to. And I think for me, that has really benefited and given me some more tangible ideas of not only self-improvement, but ways to hold guys that are probably in my close proximity to a higher standard. So for me, it's been a really good thing. It's a shame it came so late in life. This would have been great. There was things that I think I was innately picking up to do in my 30s and 40s, but this has put words to it, and it's been really good.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's very, very little leadership training in people's lives, in our country. There's very little. If you go in the military, you're gonna get some leadership training. If you go into business or wherever your occupation takes you, sometimes they'll give you some leadership courses or whatever. But from my experience and talking to other guys, the companies and corporations and things like that, they don't do a very good job of it because they don't have a specific leadership program with a didactic and a mentoring and that an apprenticeship kind of thing. And so we really don't do that. So it's a good point you make that it'd been great to have this when I was younger. One of before I posed a question about the different types of F3 guys out there, I did pose a question about that led us to think about whether we should things come easy, basically. So I put a question out there saying, if you all of a sudden could magically have the body you want, the strength, the endurance, the fitness, the aesthetics, the athletic ability, all that stuff, without having to work for it at all, without doing exercise at all, you just have it. Would you take it? And it was interesting to see responses by different guys. But I firmly believe that you should not take the magic body. And the reason is for what you've described about your own journey. All right. I mean, everybody's journey is unique, but the journey is what teaches us things. It helps us develop those leadership skills. It helps us develop the mental toughness, the emotional stability to lead well. As we move on and learn and grow, it's a process, and it's got to be a process, and that's the way the Lord has designed it. So, anyway, good point about that. Wishing that we had that earlier in life. So I
was just going to say you bring up a good point, from the Bible perspective, that we can read the Bible one day, read the same piece 2 weeks later, 2 years later, and it can mean something completely different based on a need that we have in our life. And I feel like the Q source is not, or any leadership training is not a one and done. You don't become an expert leader with one go around. It is a lifetime of experiences. And I think there's certain books that warrant rereading, Bible being one of them. And I think the Q source and other leadership manuals, if you choose to go, a different route, is one of those things. You have to, one thing I've learned from F3 is that if you're not accelerating, you're decelerating. And that was a blown mind when that thought process finally clicked. And that is so true. And I can't stress the importance enough as guys are getting into the respect categories. We got to work hard to consistently accelerate, because if you're not, the deceleration piece is really not pretty when you're in your 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Yeah, it's much steeper, right?
Well said.
Much steeper both ways. Acceleration is a little harder, and deceleration happens faster.
About it.
It only takes 2 days to gain 4 pounds, apparently. So
that's impressive.
Way to accelerate this past week.
Thank you. I do look fatter. I can see my picture on the computer. I do look fatter. All right. So to finish up our discussion on Q source, just a thought. We get new guys all the time, and people who have been around a while who haven't read either Free to Lead or Q source. Maybe we should have some kind of system in play where we have a couple books that somebody takes responsibility for it and says, "Hey, new guy, this is the new book." I think they should just buy their own book, though. Honestly, it doesn't cost that much.
Yeah,
they're both like, I think, $15 or something. So, and Q source is free online, so
Yeah, I've bought a few Free to Leads over the years and just kind of had on hand and handed out to some guys. But yeah, Q source is online.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what other regions do as far as Free to Lead goes. But I think we could do better at getting guys, just even letting them know about it, right?
Yeah.
I've tossed around the idea of maybe through Third FQ that would be something that new guys get. But I've got a buddy who has done other leadership materials for life leadership. And his take over the years has been, if people aren't willing to pay the little bit of money it costs, they've got no skin in the game, and they probably won't read it. And so as much as I'd love to force feed somebody, you need to read this and I'm going to follow up and ask you questions, if they're not doing it on their own volition, it's probably going to have little impact.
Yeah, I agree. You want to lead, you got to read.
Yep.
Leaders are readers, dial up. Or so they say.
Or
All
listen
right.
to audibles.
Pardon?
Or listen to Audible.
Audible, right.
I've got some guys who will not sit down to read a book, but they go through Audible. They're just auditory learners, so it works for them.
Yeah. I wish I drove more to do that.
Well, see, that's the disadvantage of working from home. A lot of guys, especially since COVID, a lot of guys even listening to podcasts. A lot of guys that used to listen to podcasts on their way to work and back, don't, because they don't drive to work and back anymore. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, well. All right. Well, I think, Dial Up, do you have any other questions for Stinger? And we'll wrap it up with 2 questions that we always ask.
Yeah, nothing I can think of. Yeah, right. Let's ask him if I think of something else here.
Yeah. So Stinger's he's a busy guy. He's teaching. His wife's a chiropractor. He's building a new house. They're involved in the construction right now of his new house. That's been a process. He was just across the pond for his son's birthday. So active guy, doing a lot of things, and obviously doing a lot of great work for the community, and working with our PAX here at F3 Susquehanna Valley. So Stinger, I'm going to ask you the 2 questions we ask all of our guests. I know that you listened to the podcast before, so you're really ready for this. The first question is, if you were to pick somebody that's sort of your hero, your idol, you look up to, who would you pick?
Obviously, I'd have to say on a spiritual level, it's Jesus. But I'm also somebody that is a hands-on person. And so I have the luxury of looking back from 57 years to see how God had put people in my life to kind of stand in the gap where sometimes there was things that were missing. And so I had an aunt and uncle growing up that I got to see what I thought a family should be, strong, religious family who just put their family first. And that was a good thing to see. It kind of gave me a picture of what I wanted my family to be as I got older. Through my teen years, when my dad had kind of been absentee, it's awesome. It just out of the blue, I started going to a church that had a pastor who was single. He was the one that started the church basketball league. We would walk down after school and play 2-on-2, 3-on-3, however many guys, and he would always play. We were so disappointed when he got married, but it was good for him. And obviously ministry was not just about 5 or 6 teen guys that were in his church. We ended up having some really solid youth pastors at this Baptist church. And so I had this series of people that acted as heroes. I think I have a different definition of what a hero is. I put heroes aren't famous necessarily. They just consistently live well and show up. And I had those people in my life. I didn't know it at the time, but it's one of those things I can look back and see the impact that they had. I had guys that I worked on construction with that just showed how to model their faith when you're surrounded by faithless people. And just really grateful for that God put strong men in my life all throughout. And it's continued. Here I am with F3, and I've got guys that I think probably were right up there with hero status in terms of that they consistently show up and they live their lives in a way that is just something you would want to emulate. And so I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that God puts people in our lives that really show us what we should be doing.
Yeah. Hero, your definition of hero sounds a lot like a high impact man.
Yeah.
So you're in that category. So the last question is, this is your chance to speak to the men of America. What's your message for the men of America?
So I think I'm going to narrow that down a little bit. And this is more for the guys that are in the respect categories. So for men that are in that respect category, whether they are there because they're glad to be there or kicking and screaming they're there, whether they want to be there or not. I kind of wrote this down, so this was important. Don't quit or retire. Keep setting goals and work to achieve them. This week's Q source is a good reminder, it was about SLTs, to don't do this alone. Have a group of men who will hold you accountable. And I really don't think it's any more complicated than that. It's just consistently accelerate and do your best. There's times that you're going to decelerate, but pick yourself back up and keep going. I don't believe in retirement. And so I don't think it leads to a healthy life, both physically or mentally.
Amen, brother. All right, good word. Don't retire, Dial Up.
No plans to.
I'm retiring. The heck with you, Stinger. I'm retiring.
Might retire from the current job and
transition. I like that. I'll call it transition.
Transition's a better word. Yeah, I do look forward to retiring. Not that I want it to come any sooner, because that means that I'm getting older. But I do look forward to having more time to do some other things.
Yeah, the Bible doesn't say anything about retirement, does it?
No, it does not.
Yeah, no, we're supposed to be busy about our Father's business until we get called home.
Yep.
All right, good word, brother. Thanks for being here, man. You definitely are a high impact man. I appreciate you giving us the time, and we certainly appreciate all your work that you do for the PACs and the men of our community and of F3 Susquehanna Valley.
I appreciate you guys and the encouragement of all the men in F3, not just our local Susquehanna Valley, but man, when you get on the national Slack channel, there's some incredibly high overachievers there that inspire. So grateful to be part of this. It's a blessing.
Amen, brother. F3 is great.
Yeah.
Slaughter says it can save the world.
Preach.
Amen.
Well, Dial Up, we just spoke to another high impact man.
Yes, we did. One of our own. Always great to hear from our guys. And yeah.
Absolutely.
Great having you.
We reached across the pond twice. The guys from England. We had Pastor Harry, our retired pastor, down in Virginia last week for our 3rd year anniversary episode. Hope you all listened to that, because that's really cool. And now we're back home with Stinger here in our own backyard. Who knows what guests we will have next? You have to tune in to find out.
That's right.
My wife just rolled her eyes at me. All right, boys.
What are you doing down in the man cave?
I don't know. She's in the fridge next to me.
You gotta lock the door.
The spare fridge.
Yeah.
I know. I didn't lock it. Honey, you want to get on the podcast? She says, no, thank you.
Is there any cherry Coke left in there that she could run over to my place?
No, cherry Coke is gone. I gave it to you. It's all gone. All right, guys. Well, you guys go forth and conquer today. We all got to get to work. So go forth and be a blessing to those around you.
Amen.
Care.
Thanks,
right,
Ben.
See you guys. Bye-bye. Hey.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. I would like to thank our guests for joining us and sharing their story of becoming a high-impact man. More information and resources can be found at highimpactman.com. If you like this podcast, please consider following us on our social media pages or email us at him@highimpactman.com. That is HIM@highimpactman.com. The High Impact Man podcast has a new episode every week, and you can find them on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Google Podcast platforms. Have a great week, everyone.